Chuck's Guitar Geekery. Today I'm going to test how well the DF-7 models the pedals it's supposed to be modeling. Frankly, because I have too many pedals. I need to thin the herd a bit, and if the DF-7 can actually do what most of these pedals do, why do I need duplicates? Okay, so to do this test, I'm going to kind of do a couple different stages here. First, I'm going to get the original pedal where I like the way it sounds, and I'll see if the DF-7 can mimic that. And then I will take the DF-7, because DF-7 has a lot more EQ controls than most of these pedals. So I will see if I can get the DF-7 to sound better than the original. Or, not better, that's subjective, but a way I would like it more. So, let's do this. So this is bypassed. Like I said, dirty amp. Now, follow the light. B is DF-7, A, the original pedal. Okay, so the 250, I don't know if you can see on the Digitech here, but the volume is all the way up. It has no more volume to add. The DoD, on the other hand, has a lot more volume. And just for continuity's sake, let's do a fairly clean amp. You know what? I feel like the DF-7 doesn't sound much better than the original, so I think score 1 for the 250 on this one. Now let's go to the next one. So next up is a Tube Screamer, which is Model 1 on the DF-7, but I don't have an actual Tube Screamer. I have this clone that a friend built a long time ago, and I bought off him a long time ago. I think he built it from a kit, but he actually went so far as to like get the actual chip from a TS-808, so it's a TS-808 clone. Digitech is doing TS-9 clone. But Tube Screamers are so close. Anyways, switching to the neck pickup, I'll start with a clean amp, and then I'll see how it does like tightening up a dirty amp. So now I'm going to test how it does going into a dirty amp, kind of using it more to like tighten up a somewhat heavy sound. So this is bypass. Starting with the Digitech. And, you know, if you noticed, but for all intents and purposes, we'll call it the real Tube Screamer, has a lot more output than the DF-7. So for the two overdrive models, I think the overdrives still have the edge purely because they have a lot more output and you can actually use them to overdrive an amp, whereas the Digitech, not so much. Anyways, moving on. So now on to the illustrious Boss DS1. It's a pedal some people love, some people hate, but does the DF-7 do it justice? So this is bypassed. So, you know, a little teeny bit of grit on it. That's what the DS1 likes best. So let's start with the DS1. That's pretty darn close. Let's check how it responds to the guitar's controls here. Okay, so the DF-7 is adding a little bit of a digital artifact in there. Which I would argue in a live setting you probably would never notice. In recording, yeah, it's noticeable. Okay, so part of running this test is to see if I can sell my other dirt pedals and just use a DF-7. And one of my favorites that I really don't ever use is this modified DS1 that's got a JCM mod to it. So it's supposed to sound more like a Marshall in a box. So let's see how it compares to that. So here I am with my modified DS1. Let's see how these compare. Now that's where I get into the part of the test where I see if I can make it sound better. So can I get the DF-7 to sound better than the modified DS1 that I like? Honestly, I don't think I can get it to sound better, but it sounds pretty darn close. So the JCM mod is pretty much, I think, mostly just affecting how the EQ of the tone control works. So it gives a lot more mids. I think it's pretty darn close to the modified version or the modern version of the DS1W. So cool, let's move on to the next. So up next is the fourth model, and that's the Proco Rat. And this has been my favorite distortion pedal as of late. So let's see if it can dethrone the Rat off my pedal board. What I love about the Rat is it does kind of bleed into more of a fuzz once you get higher up in the distortion knob. So. I say the DF-7 does that with less noise. But once again, where the DF-7 is falling short, as you can see, the volume knob is all the way up on the DF-7. Whereas Perco Rat has a lot more output, and you can also use that pretty much as an overdrive on its own. So for these last pedals here, I don't have exact matches. The last three models are Metal Zone, it's a Digitech metal pedal of some sort that I don't have. And it's also a Big Muff, which I don't have either. So, but what I do have as far as Metal Zone is my modified Metal Zone, which I like a lot. So, can it sound like my modified Metal Zone, I guess is the question here. So what the Simple Dog does is pretty much you clip out a couple, it's pretty much the circuit that gives the Metal Zone its distinctive nasal sound. So it almost sounds like a cocked wah all the time. So it's just, I don't know, plain distortion at that point. And I spent a lot of time fiddling knobs. This is the least nasally I can make the DF-7 sound. So. So no, the DF-7 does not sound better than my modified Metal Zone. To me, it sounds on par with the regular Metal Zone. Yeah, I don't know, the DF-7 I don't think tops the modified Metal Zone. And just for fun, let's test out the last two models that are in here. That may be a sound for somebody, not for me. And a Big Muff. Right there, I think a big muff with a powerful EQ is worth the price of admission alone on the DF-7. Because a few times I have tried to use a big muff style pedal live, it just gets lost in a mix, especially when you have a second guitarist. I know some bands are able to pull it off, but I just haven't been able to. So does that sound better than a big muff? Not sure, but it sounds good. So that's what I need to know. So at the end of the day, is this good enough to replace all the other dirt pedals I have? I'm leaning towards no. I wanted it to be, but this is the first time I really tried these pedals back to back like this, and it's not going to replace the overdrive pedals. The Tube Screamer and the 250, it just does not have the output needed to do what I like to do with those, which is push the front of an amp, you know, to quote overdrive an amp with an overdrive pedal. Quirky concept, I know. The DS1, I think this does better than the DS1. You know, it has a powerful EQ, which is where, you know, a stock DS1 falls flat. You know, a stock DS1 is always going to have that mid-scooped sound. It actually did pretty darn close to what my modified DS1 does, so that's some food for thought for me. Maybe it's time to let both of those go. The Proco Rat, it does the Rat sound, you know, tone-wise, yeah. But I also like to use the Rat sometimes to push the front of an amp, because the Rat has a ton of output. You can turn the distortion down, and it acts like a pretty good overdrive too. But with the lack of output on here, I mean, most of the time I just use it as a straight up distortion pedal. This may do that trick. I don't know. And plus you get more EQ options, because sometimes the Rat gets a little boomy sounding. The Metal Zone, like I said, I would probably never go for a regular Metal Zone sound anyways, but it does not do what my modified one does. So I think, you know, I'll hold on to my modified. And then the Digitech metal pedal that it mimics, I don't know about that one. I've never played it. It has its own sound, you know, if you very much industrial metal sounding to me, but the big muff version on here, that's where this shines, because you get a big muff with some mid-range and some bite to it, and that's invaluable if you want to play live in a band and sit in a mix. Plus, another feature I haven't seen talked about so much on this is it has two outputs. One output is has a Amplifier Simulation, a cab sim, so you can go direct to the board with this. I did a video on that a long time ago. Maybe I'll revisit it someday and see how this holds up as a digital amp model. In fact, I think all the X series from Digitech have that feature on it. So they have a Chorus Factory, I think a Flange Factory maybe. I don't know. They have a couple others in this X series. But I would always have this at a show as a backup, because worst case scenario, put it on the board, send a DI out to the front of house, and you can keep going. The other guitarist in my band had a unreliable tube amp for a while, and a few times he had to do that. And I would go out front, it sounded pretty darn good. So anyways, I think maybe this is informative. I have no idea if the prices of these are coming back down to somewhat reality since JHS told everyone about them. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't, but if you can get one at a decent price and you don't have all the other pedals that you want out of it, go for it. Otherwise, thanks for watching. See ya.